Go ahead.
All yours, brother. Hit it.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Ant. I'm an alcoholic and a crack whore, and I smoked crystal meth once for 36 years. Eric, thank you so much for asking me to speak. Eric, you actually reached out to me like 4 months ago. I was with my old sponsor back then, and my old sponsor, because I was speaking like 5 times a week, and I was hating my story and I was hating AA, and he said, take a break from speaking. So I did, and I told you that. And then you went into the future and said, oh, how about this date? And I'm like, oh, God. Okay. Now I have a new sponsor. I left my old sponsor because I needed to be accountable. So I got a sponsor in Las Vegas. I had a Los Angeles sponsor for many, many, many years. And her name is Myra, and she's in here. So if you have anything, an opinion about anything I'm going to say that you don't like, reach out to her because I don't really give a shit. I could care less. So, and that's a gift of Alcoholics Anonymous is what you think about me is none of my business. And I don't care. And there's so much freedom in that, so much freedom in that. And I wish that for you as well. And I've got a couple sponsees in here, and my sponsor is in here, and it is a Sunday night, and it's a beautiful night, and I'm filled with gratitude. I don't know why, but I'm just filled with gratitude, and I wanted to share that with you. I love going to old churches. Nobody ever wants to travel with me, none of my friends, because they want to go like see the Mona Lisa, they want to see the Arc of Triumph, they want to go see this. I want to go to old churches. I don't know why. I'm obsessed with them. I love looking at the stained glass. I like walking in and seeing the architecture and the pageantry and the gold leafing and the pews and wondering if, like a nun had sex in this pew. Like I really love old churches. And I was in Ireland in Cork, and I went into this old church and there was a funeral going on, but I didn't care because I'm an alcoholic. It wasn't my funeral. So I went in anyway, and I sat in the very back pew. And as I was watching the funeral procession and the pageantry and the funeral sort of unfolding, there was a little old lady who worked, I guess, at the church wearing a little schmata and carrying a little rag, and she was cleaning all the pews. And when she got back to the last pew where I was sitting, I said, well, what happened to him? And she said, oh, he died of the drink. He died of the drink. I said, he was alcoholic? And she said, oh, it never got that bad. And that, my friends, is my alcoholism in a nutshell. It will lie to me. It wants me dead, but it will settle for miserable. And it never wants me to believe it's that bad. It just never wants me to believe it's that bad. I took my first drink by choice when I was 11 years old. My best friend, Richard Scalfani, and my other, well, he stole a Playboy magazine and a six pack of Michelob Light, pea warm. So we went into my tree fort with him, Nick Greeby, Mike Paquin, and myself, the four of us. And we opened up that for and my tree fort. I was so okay. My parents were like, we had no idea you were gay. I'm like, Mom, my tree fort had a breakfast nook and running water. Nobody knew. Anyway, we opened up that first beer and we passed it around. And we opened up that second beer and we passed it around. And we opened up the third beer and we passed it around. And the book says alcoholics drink primarily for the effect produced. And I am not special. I'm not different. I am not unique. I'm 11 years old. I am getting filled with alcohol. And all of a sudden, that invisible wall that separated you from me, that I later learned by coming into Alcoholics Anonymous, was fear, was gone. And for a brief moment, I was one with my fellows. I was one with my fellows, and all my problems disappeared. And I'm 11 and I'm thinking these things, right? And I say for a brief moment because after that, my friends opened up that Playboy magazine. Now, there are young people in here, so I'll tell you magazines are papers that were stapled in the middle, and you use your hands and your eyes to read. You don't use your thumb. Anyway, I'm digressing. So, Playboy magazine had a centerfold in it that would fold out long way. And it was like May, and Miss May was like 8 feet tall because she just kept unfolding. And I'm slightly buzzed, slightly getting drunk. And my friends were like, look at those. Look at that. And I'm like, look at her manicure. Why is she naked on the beach looking for her checkbook? I don't even understand this magazine. But it didn't matter because we had beer number 4, beer number 5, and beer number 6. And all was one with the world. And I don't know if any of you can relate to this. I'm 11 years old, and the thought that I had when we finished that sixth beer was, I will do whatever it takes to feel like this for the rest of my life. I had found the magic elixir, and the book talks about the magic elixir, right? Wow. 11. So I started doing exactly what a boy on a mission to feel like that for the rest of his life would do. I started stealing alcohol from my parents, from my friends, anywhere I could get it. I was in it. I don't care what it was, what it looked like, how it mixed, because I didn't drink for the taste. I only drank for the effect produced. So when I hear people go, "Oh, I don't like the taste of alcohol," I'm like, I hate the taste of alcohol, but I like where it brings me. I like where it brings me. And I grew up in New Hampshire, and there was nothing to do in New Hampshire except get drunk and go to the power lines as kids. And our parents had blinders on, and they never saw what we were doing. They just never did, at least during my generation. And so I'm graying out and I'm browning out, and then eventually I'm blacking out. And it was so weird because nobody was talking to us kids about drinking or drugs. Nobody, but we were all doing it. And I happened to be doing it a little bit more excessive than most, but it didn't seem out of place to me. So I would black out and I would come to in a cornfield 4 hours away from my home, or 3 hours from where we started, or it would be 7 hours later and I wouldn't know where I was or how I got there, right? Or sometimes I would wake up and I would be naked wearing nothing but cowboy boots, and I don't even own cowboy boots. So I was like, what is going on here? Now, at the same time growing up, we had this television show on called In Search of, and it was hosted by Leonard Nimoy. And every week it was close encounters of the first kind, close encounters of the second kind, people who'd seen UFOs, blah, 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 blah. And one week, this guy looks right at the camera in this one episode and he says, "Here's how you can tell if you're being abducted. You wake up in strange places. You've lost time, and you're in various states of undress." And I thought, and I sat my mom and my dad down and I said, "You're not going to believe this. I'm being abducted by an alien race." I was serious. They put me in therapy so fast. Don't pass go. Don't collect $200. And the therapist never once said, "Are you drinking or smoking any?" Never once. Because I really think if someone had spotted it sooner, my trip to Alcoholics Anonymous might have happened a little bit faster. But that's not my story. So I'm drinking, and the book, and in the rooms you'll hear it's fun, and then it's fun with problems, and then it's just problems. And I really want to stress that I'm a garden variety drunk, and I'm a garden variety junkie. I'm not special. I'm not different. I am not unique. Fun, fun with problems, and then just problems. And it got so bad, I was like knocking down, I was getting into car accidents. I was smashing mailboxes with the cars. I was getting in so much trouble at school that my mom and my dad decided that they were going to take me to court to have me emancipated. And for those of you that don't know what that is, emancipation means your parents are done with you. They ask the courts to declare you a legal adult, and then you're on your own. And I'm 16 and I'm thinking, there is no way a judge is going to sever the parental relationship. And I had a public defender who I don't even think graduated law school. I don't even think she went to law school. But anyway, the judge sided with them, and he smacked his gavel. He signed a piece of paper and he looked at me and he goes, "You are now a legal adult. And if you appear before me in my courtroom again, I see bars in your future." And the arrogant alcoholic me said, "Well, I hope they're serving tequila at that bar." The disrespect, the disrespect. And I love that people are smiling because you identify the disrespect, the craziness of the alcoholic. And so I was a legal adult. And what do alcoholics do? We run. We do these things called these geographics, because I thought the problem was New Hampshire. So I decided, that's where I grew up. I thought the problem was New Hampshire. So I decided I was going to move to Los Angeles because there's no drugs or alcohol in LA. Genius alcoholic, right? And boy, was I wrong. I started running with a very fast gay crowd. And when you're 16 years old, you got a full head of hair and a six pack. There's no such thing as you got to be 21 to get into a gay bar. Let's just say that. And I was drinking and blacking out, and I was at this after hours club called the Probe. That's what gay men call their clubs, Probe. Lesbians call their bars Feathers, Angel, Butterfly. Gay men, Probe, Ramrod, Shaft, Nail. Like they drive that whole phallic thing so home. It's insane. But I'm at this bar called the Probe. It's 3:30 in the morning, and this tall, gorgeous Nordic Latino comes up to me and he goes, "You look a little tired." I was like, "I'm exhausted. It's 3:30 in the morning." And he sticks this thing up under my nose and he says, "Inhale deep." And the next thing I know, I'm dancing shirtless on a box. I'm holding two American flags. I'm doing this with them. I cannot stop. It was my first experience with crystal methamphetamine, and I had incredible urge to vacuum the ceiling. And that's when it was working. And that's all I remember that night. So my drinking and my drugging really, really took off, you know? And again, if one is good, 10 is better. And if 10 are better, 50 are better, you know? And then my drinking and my drugging started progressing. It got, I went into other substances besides crystal meth. I started doing speedballs. I started doing basically everything. I was a garbage pail. And clarity and willingness collided. And I don't know why. And those two things I've later learned have to be present in order for us to end up here. You have to have the clarity to understand that there's a problem, and you've got to have the willingness to know that you've got to do something about it. So clarity and willingness collided for me. And I said the alcoholic prayer, which many of you know: God, I could use your help. And I prayed to a God that I was mad at, that I didn't even believe in. How crazy is that? So I bumped into this kid the very next day after saying that prayer. The next day, his name is Steve L. He's my Eskimo. And he looked at me and he's like, "What's going on? What's up? You know how you guys all do. You happy AA. What's up? Something's wrong." And I just, for some reason, I told one person the truth. I said, "Steve, I said, I'm drinking and I'm blacking out and I think I'm a drug addict and I don't know what to do," because I didn't know what to do. And he looked at me and he said, "I can help." And I said, "How are you going to help me?" And he goes, "I'm going to take you to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous." He said, "I'm going to pick you up tomorrow morning at 6:30 a.m. I said, "Oh, I'm really busy. 6:30 is early in the morning." But he picked me up at 6:30. We went to the Don Riley Memorial Meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous in West Hollywood, California. And I want to tell you that, I've been sober ever since then, and I've got 29 years, but that is not my story. I amassed 10 years in AA, not working with a sponsor, not doing what you do, sitting in the back, judging all of you, thinking I'm better than you all, offering help, but I had nothing to transmit. And if you always do what you've always done, you will always get what you have always gotten. Nada. And that's exactly what I got in 10 years, right? And I got osmosis. Some things started to click, but most didn't. And, I got into a relationship, and what happened for me, and this is how the relapse happened. I had no program, no God, no spirituality, no steps, no sober, but I had a boyfriend, and that boyfriend got cancer and died. And then I relapsed. And that relapse lasted 2.5 years until everything stopped working again. Alcohol gave me the courage to try all these other things, and these other things took away the sky, gave me the wings to fly and took away the sky and never asked my permission. And so what happened? I said the alcoholic prayer a second time. And this time the prayer was, "God, if you don't hate me and if you're not so mad at me, I could use your help." Not really even believing it was going to work. And here's how I know that step two gently and consistently works in my life. This is now 12 and a half years later. The same Eskimo that found me the first time found me the second time. Steve L. At a Ralph's in the Valley while I was stealing grapes. Taps me on the shoulder. "Aunt, Steve," goes, "You look like hell." And I said, Steve, I've relapsed and I'm lying about it and I don't know how to get back. And he looked at me and he said, I can help. And he took me to the 8 a.m. Don Riley Memorial Meeting in West Hollywood, California. It happens in a little log cabin in the middle of the city. And if you don't believe me, you can ask Courtney and Eden. They've been there. And that's when my journey in Alcoholics Anonymous really began because I knew that if I wanted what you had, I have to do what you do. If I want what you have, I got to do what you do. I need to know, look at Naomi. I need to look at Trey. I got to look at Courtney and Sarah and Leslie and Deb and Eric. And how are you doing it today? And I just got to copy you, you know? So I needed to get a sponsor. And that first sponsor I got, Brandon Sanchez, took me through the first 12 steps in about 6 months. And then I decided I need another experience with the steps. So then I hired a guy named Jay Westbrook, who a lot of you know in here. Jay Westbrook is a white man with this giant afro, very loving man who I just love to death. And I hired Jay. And I say hire, by the way, if you're new, we don't hire and fire. It's just fun language that we like to say. You're not going to find no big book thumper is going to find that in the book. I promise you. Um, I love that you guys went so crazy for a Jack in the Box crown. I'm like, you guys just go to your own Jack, go to your own Burger King. They'll give you a crown for free and write Thumper right on it. No one's going to know. Then you can claim that you've won the prize. Oh, rigorous honesty. So sorry, I forgot. So I hired Jay. And when I went up to him, I said, Jay, I'd really like you to sponsor me. He goes, you know what, Aunt? He goes, I really haven't liked a lot of stuff that's come out of your mouth. And I said, Jay, I'm so desperate. He goes, but are you teachable? And I go, yes, I'm teachable. I will do whatever you say. And he goes, all right, well, the first thing I need to teach you is the difference between a direction and a suggestion. I said, okay, Jay, what's a direction? He goes, Aunt, a direction is something you're going to do. It's not up for debate. And you're going to let me know how it worked out. I said, okay, what's a suggestion? He said, a subtle direction. Okay, basically, I'm just going to be doing everything you tell me. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to be doing your thinking for you for your next year. And I'm so grateful because I need people to do my thinking my first few years. You know, I was in post acute withdrawal syndrome. I was thought cycling. Thoughts that I thought made sense and were great ideas were not great ideas. When I ran them by people, they were like, did you just hear what you said? I was like, it sounded good. Let me tell you what you just said. Then they repeat it back to you, and you're like, oh my God, I said that out loud. Craziness, right? A lot of you can relate to that. And yeah, Mama Goat. So we started on the journey, and he said, you're always going to be working one of the steps or the traditions. He goes, don't compare yourself to other people's programs because you will compare yourself out of the room. He said, and you need to call me on a regular basis. And I said, I can do all of those things. So, with your permission, I'm going to go through the steps the way that Jay Westbrook took me through the steps. And to this day, it's the way I take my sponsees through the steps. Step one is we admitted, not I admitted, we admitted. Why? Because this is not an I program, this is a we program. So if you're in here thinking you're in a self help program, you don't understand this program. This is a we help program, not a self help program. So we admitted we were powerless over alcohol. And then there's a dash that I learned, which means new thought, not related to the first thought. So we admitted we were powerless over alcohol. And the book says, right, that the first step in recovery is I have to be honest with myself. So Jay asked me, do you think you have a problem with alcohol? Yes. Do you think your life is unmanageable? Yes. Can you give me some examples of powerlessness and unmanageability? And I said, yes. Jay, every time I black out, I wake up with girls. Did you all hear that? I wake up with girls and they're usually crying. And one time I asked a girl, why are you crying? And she goes, oh my God, how drunk was I? And I thought, bitch, first of all, I'm a catch. And second of all, why am I wearing your panties? This is so awkward for me. Anyway, so he says, okay, great. Now let's talk about unmanageability. So I gave him examples of unmanageability. And it turns out that anytime I think I am running the show, that train has already left the station. My life will not be manageable by me. That is what I learned in step one. And the spiritual principle behind step one is honesty. I have to be honest with myself, not you, me. And if I can be honest with myself, if we can name it, we can tame it. Step two is came to believe. Came, past tense. Ever wonder why it's in the past tense? Because when you wash up on the shores of Alcoholics Anonymous, you probably think you're the end all be all. You're either a piece of shit that the world revolves around, or you're the end all be all that the world revolves around, right? So the first step, our founders put it in the past tense. By the time you wash up on the shores of Alcoholics Anonymous, you might be actually ready to have a new experience and come to believe in something different. So I came to believe that a power greater than me, and in the very beginning, it was a belt buckle, not going to lie. And then it became the ocean, then it became the universe. And now it is the power and the love and kindness and empathy and joy that flows through each of you to me. Step three is made a decision to turn my will and my life over to the care of God as I understood him. That one was a little bit tougher for me. I said, Jay, if I can't see, smell, feel, touch, or taste this God thing, I don't know. The spiritual principle behind the third step is faith. He said, Aunt, I guess we need to test the quality of your faith. I said, I don't think I ever have faith in anything. He said, Oh, yes, you do. How many times have you been on an airplane? I said, Hundreds. Because how many times have you stepped into the cockpit and introduced yourself to the pilot? Never. How many times have you looked into the cockpit to make sure there was a pilot sitting in the seat? Never. So you've never asked that man or woman if they've ever been in a crash, if they're on the right plane, if they have a license to fly the plane, if they've ever been to flight school. No, 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 no. He goes, but you get on a metal tube, you walk down one aisle, you sit in a seat, put a little flimsy seatbelt on yourself in the hopes of going from point A to point B at 27,000 feet, going 700 miles per hour. You have more faith in that than the creator of everything. Is that what faith is? Just blind like that? Like I get on a plane? Yes, it is. We complicate it all. As Anthony Hopkins always says, alcoholics, this is a simple program for people who think they're complicated. And I love that because God knows we want to complicate a free lunch. Step four, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Jay said, Aunt, you're a hateful queen. Here's a notebook and a pen. Just start writing down everything you hate. And I went, first of all, I hate your hair. It's a hate crime. It offends my eyes. And I just started writing. And then he had me write my sexual inventory, which was a little embarrassing. He said, Aunt, I want you to write down the names of all the men you've slept with. I said, Jay, names? Like gay guys, we don't, it's not like can, right? Am I right, can? Gay guys, we don't, names not always I go, how about guy in blue high tops? I'll remember the fashion, I'll remember that kind of stuff. Thanks, Elizabeth. So I did my sex inventory. Then I had to write down my fears, top 10 fears. And then I had to write my financial amends or my financial inventory about, who I screwed over and how much and why and other types of financial ruin that I put people through. So when I was all done, I had to make an appointment with Jay, and he made an appointment with me. And I sat down, and the first thing he said to me, first thing, what are the three things that you didn't write down that you think you're going to take to the grave? How dare you? I clutched pearls I was not wearing, thinking I would be and I went, well, first of all, there are five. There are five I didn't write down. How do you guys know that about us? How do you know that? But that's exactly the truth. And I told that man those five things. One of those things could still put me in prison today. And at the end of it, he loved me. He said, Thank you for honoring me with your truth. And he didn't put me in jail and he didn't throw me out like yesterday's garbage. He hugged me and he told me he loved me. And I felt it. Step 6 and 7 is our character defects. So while I was reading my fifth step to Jay, he was throwing words out at me like condescending, write it down, Domineering, write it down. And we were talking about my mom at the time, and these were like perfect words for her, right? People pleasing. I'm like, well, she's not really a people pleaser. I go, what are these words? He goes, those are your character defects. I was like, I do not like these words one bit. And what he had me do is with these character defects, I had to buy these index cards, 5x7 cards. And on one side of a card, I had to write a defect and then define it. And on the back of that card, I had to write its opposite and define it. And if I couldn't think of what its opposite was, I had to write, or how did God want me to behave in that situation? Wow. And I had to carry those cards around with me everywhere I went. And anytime I acted in the defect of character, I had to immediately stop and get into the asset of character. And I got to tell you, one time I was at a grocery store and I am lying through my teeth to the checkout girl, lying about I don't even know what. And I went, I'm totally lying to you. Hold on, let me tell you what the opposite of that is. And I reach into my pocket for my cards and she goes, telling the truth. And I was like, are you a friend of Bill? How do you know all this? Like, instant, this is so crazy. Because we weren't given the rule book and the guidebook, you guys. Like, we got to be taught this stuff. You're parenting me. And then I learned to parent me. And then we parent newcomers. And then they parent themselves. And then they parent others. That's what the gift of this thing is, right? Step 7, I had to make an appointment with Jay when I was, after I started more behaving more in the asset of character, I could put cards away. And once I had just a couple left, Jay said, okay, let's get together and we're going to ask for them to be removed. And that's step 7. And we did this prayer, where I basically asked God to remove every single defect of character that stands in the way of my usefulness to Him and to you, and to give me the strength as I go on to do God's bidding. And I thought I was going to levitate after that. I thought, what the, you guys, the book makes such a big deal. There's a prayer, you're holding a hands, you're sitting across from some guy. Nothing. I didn't feel a thing. And Jay said, well, Aunt, you've got free will. You always got free will. You can take any of these defects of characters back, but then you can always go to God and ask Him to remove them. And He's only going to remove the ones that stand in the way, of my usefulness. So understand that, if you've got a lot of character defects that are happening right now, it's because God doesn't want them removed from you yet. A lot of my character defects were defense mechanisms and they protected me, which allows me to be almost 60 years old today. And without them, I might have been dead. So thank God for those defects. But those defects stop working. And when they stop working, they get old like an inventory. And I get to either refresh them by start acting in the asset of character, or I don't grow. And if I don't grow in here, I go from here. And I don't want to go from here. So growing is better. Step 8 is made a list of all the persons I had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. If you're new, this step will take you 8 months and 10 minutes. 8 months to procrastinate on it, and the 10 minutes to actually just write the list. You did your 4th step. There's the list. Just transfer the list. And all you got to do is write the name, what you think the amends should be, and what character defects were at play that caused you to behave that way. Super simple. It took like 10 minutes, right? Step 9 is made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Top of that list was my sister Althea. I hadn't spoken to her in years. And not only had I not spoken to her, I told her children that she was doing gangbang porn to support them and had contracted AIDS. And so we stopped speaking for many, many, many years. And she was at the top of that list. And my sponsor, Jay, at the time said, okay, we're going to start with that one. And I went, that one? Jay, I stole $30,000 from Citibank. Can't we start with that? And he's like, no, we're going to start with your sister Althea. And I said, oh my God, okay. I'm going to write a lovely text. You tell me what to write, and I'm going to type it right now and send it, and we'll be done, and we'll move on to Citibank. And he said, oh no, Aunt, you need to do that one face to face. And I was living in Los Angeles, and she was still in New Hampshire. But I said I would do everything you told me. And when I asked that man to sponsor me, I said I would do everything he told me. I made that commitment to myself and to him and to you all. So I called my sister and I said, Althea, I said, I'd like to come and see you and sort of clear up some of the damage that I've done. And she goes, oh, you must be on that 9th step thing, huh? And I'm like, what the? That TV show Shameless has ruined AA for us, you guys. Everybody knows the mission we're on. I said, yes. And she goes, look, if you fly all the way to New Hampshire and I'm home, you can have 10 minutes. And if I'm not, you wasted a trip. Click. And then she hung up on me. So I made the reservation on American Airlines and I got on the airplane. And the first thing I did was I looked into that cockpit and I said, hi. I learned. Hello. And then I took my seat, got to New Hampshire, and I knocked on her door and she was home. And she invited me in and I launched right into my amends. Oh my God, I'm sorry. I did this. I said this. I said these to your children. And what Jay taught me to do was only talk about my behavior. The word but, because you never ever entered the conversation. It was only my behavior. But in Alcoholics Anonymous, we don't just say, I'm sorry, because our apologies mean absolute crap to the people that love us because we've hurt them so much and said, I'm sorry so much and have never ever meant anything behind it, that it doesn't mean anything to them. So we back it up with the currency. And the currency we back it up in Alcoholics Anonymous is this: what can I do to fix this and make it right? And she told me, and there were things I didn't even know. Like, for example, when I told her kids that she had gotten AIDS from doing gangbang porn, they didn't hug her or touch her for a year. I can never give that back to her. I didn't know that. We think we're only hurting ourselves. And then she said, you need to go to them and clean it up with them and tell them that you're a lying douchebag. And I said, I can do that. And she said, and then you need to call mom and dad and tell them what you did and own it. And I said, I can do that too. So I sat my nephew down and I said, Matt, I'm in a program of recovery. First of all, I sat my niece down, Taylor, and she was graduating high school and she was going to become a nurse. So she already understood Alcoholics Anonymous a little bit. So I said, Taylor, what can I do to make this right? And she said, Uncle Aunt, can you just live in your integrity? I was like, Taylor, you're not going to believe this. I said, but I just learned what that word meant like 2 steps ago. Yes, I can live in my integrity. I know what it means. Yes, I can. Matt, 16 years old, height of puberty, his voice still crackling. I go, Matt, I'm in a program of recovery that requires for my continued spiritual growth. I need to make amends for the wrongs of my past. And he looked at me and he goes, Uncle Ant, this is creeping me out. I go, me too. What can I do to fix this? He goes, buy me an Xbox. Done. Let's go to Toys R Us immediately. I have no idea who John Madden is, but I love that man. And the healing with my family was instant. The healing with my sister was instant. My nieces, my parents, instant. Instant. So much so that my sister said, Taylor's graduating. Will you come to graduation? Yes. Matt is having a prom and there's not enough adults to chaperone it. Will you fly back and chaperone? Yes. We're having a cookout this summer. Yes, 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 yes. And the ninth step is my favorite step because 3 months after I made that amend, my sister was killed. And when I got the call, I was filled with so many emotions. But one of them that surprised me was gratitude because you gave me a gift. You made me go and make this amended person and clean up the wreckage of my past. And if I hadn't done that, you would have a different speaker right now. But everything that needed to be said, we were good. Our streak was clean. Step 10 is my nightly inventory. I try and do a nightly inventory. Where was I kind? Where was I loving? Where was I gracious? Because it's credits and debits. And where was I a dick? And where could I have done better? Step 11 is prayer and meditation. Prayer is me talking to God. Meditation is me pretending to listen. I say that because God's never spoken to me. I hate when I'm in a meeting and someone's like, and Jesus told me, and I'm like, wow, I'm so no one, not a guy named Jesus has never even told me anything. Like, why am I not getting these messages from people? But I get them in other ways. I get them through you. I get them through billboards. I get them through television and movies and animals and my dog. That's the gift of AA. I'm becoming the man my dog thinks I am. That's the gift for me. Right, Courtney? Step 12 is giving it away, giving it away, having had a spiritual awakening, right? We tried to carry this message to alcoholics who still suffer. And so when a man I've never met, Eric, calls me and says, Aunt, will you come and speak in Princeton, New Jersey? Yes, I will. Of course I will. It's going to be a couple months because I need a break because it's very emotional because I give everything to these shares. I give everything to these shares because our lives depend on it, and other people give them back to us because their lives depend on it. And but the measure of my sobriety is not how I behave in here because my sponsor now is Myra H. I've only been with her for 2 months, and it's a journey, and I'm loving every minute of it with her. She's very maternal. She's also Latina and will cut you if you lie. So I try not to because I don't want to get cut. Um, and it's been an exciting new journey with her. But the measure of my recovery is how do I behave out there when no one is looking? Do I pick up my dog when he poops on the ground? Yes. Do I return extra change to the cashier? Yes. Yes. Am I perfect? No. Do I have lots of problems? Yes. I have to have chaperones when I go to the DMV. It's true. I have to have chaperones because it's like my behavior. It's just, I can't be alone in the DMV. I'll be arrested for homicide. So I end my shares like this. Everything I am and everything I have should be stamped the property of Alcoholics Anonymous. And thank you for allowing me into your homes.